Hello and welcome to the Webcast for Monday, June 23rd. I'm South Ops meteorologist Jonathan O'Brien. The marine layer is about 2,500 feet deep this morning, bringing low clouds and fog to most coastal and coastal valley areas and even approaching the lower coastal slopes in some cases. We also have a batch of cloudiness across much of interior central California, and overall today is more like a typical May day than a late June day, as a fairly robust Pacific trough brings some unsettled conditions to the region. That trough shows up really well on the water vapor satellite this morning, and again, it is pretty impressive for this time of year when normally high pressure is dominating our weather. That trough is going to linger over the region through tomorrow before departing around the middle of this week. This trough will do a couple of things for us for today and tomorrow. Firstly, it will cause temperatures to remain on the cool side for this time of year. Here's a look at today's forecast highs. Not exactly frigid, but certainly below average. Tomorrow we'll see a couple degrees of warming as the trough begins to weaken. The trough is also generating instability over our region, especially across central California, and for the first time in a couple of weeks, that is going to allow shower and thunderstorm chances to return to the forecast today. Showers and thunderstorms are likely across much of the Sierra region this afternoon, and this will probably be more than isolated activity, likely solidly into the scattered category. Any thunderstorms will remain wet, and some locally heavy rainfall is possible in the stronger storms, though most areas will see less than a quarter inch of rainfall. On Tuesday, another round of more isolated activity is possible in the same general areas as the trough begins to weaken and pull away. That's about where the excitement ends, though, as this is really looking like a pretty low-impact week of weather overall. As the trough from early this week departs, weak high pressure will build into California for most of the remainder of the week. This will promote a gradual warming trend, but as we've seen so far this season, it's another rather unimpressive high pressure area, and that's going to continue keeping any extreme heat well at bay for the foreseeable future. There are even some early indications for a renewed cooling trend heading into 4th of July week. And so we will steadily warm through the end of this week. Here's a look at the forecast highs by Friday, near to a little above normal for this time of year, but again, not excessively hot by any means. There may be a couple more degrees of warming over the weekend, but overall, most areas aren't likely to get much warmer than what you see here. A persistent marine layer will remain in place this week as well, but will gradually shrink from about 2,500 feet deep today to closer to 1,500 feet by the end of this week, continuing to keep coastal areas cooler and more moist. Minimum humidity will be mainly 12 to 25% above and inland from the marine layer influence through the upcoming weekend, with single digits in the deserts, so nothing too crazy on that front either. Recoveries will be mostly fair to good outside of the deserts. And in terms of the winds, they will be primarily local and terrain-driven this week, with occasional afternoon and evening breeziness across the wind-prone ridges and passes, but nothing out of the ordinary. Dead fuel moistures will mostly be on steady or rising trends through Tuesday or Wednesday, then should slowly dry away from the marine influence through the end of this week. Dead fuel moistures are mostly near to below normal, but overall we are definitely in better shape this week than we were for most of last week. Live fuel moistures will continue to slowly decrease this week. They generally remain near normal for this time of year, but at least in the lower to mid elevations are gradually becoming more receptive to carrying fire, following the typical seasonal cycle. So all in all, it looks like a pretty tame week ahead. Large fire potential will be fairly low the next couple of days due to the relatively cool temperatures. Potential will gradually increase through the end of this week as warming occurs, but a lack of any significant winds or critically low RH will still limit concerns overall. It's likely any large fire potential will be primarily confined to grassy fuel types on any wind and terrain-aligned starts during the critical burn window, but we have started to see a few cases where brush fuels have become contributors to fire activity, and despite the lack of significant fire weather this week, the gradually lowering live fuel moistures will continue to make such occurrences more prevalent in the weeks ahead. I'll also note that a few lightning fire starts are very much possible across the Sierra over the next couple of days. However, weather and fuel conditions are unlikely to favor significant short-term growth. Expect light to moderate initial attack activity across the region through the forecast period. That's it for today's webcast. Thanks for joining us. The next one will be on Tuesday, June 24th.